Hi, everyone, and welcome to today's webinar. This one is a special as we're joined by INVERS, our industry partner who are leaders within telematics software. Today, we'll be discussing how operators can unlock the power of car sharing through Bluetooth connectivity. As car sharing has accelerated, in Germany alone, it was counted that over 5 million people registered for car sharing services, up 23.1% from last year. A trend that can be seen beyond these geographical borders. However, stable connectivity still remains a big pain for users when they find themselves in rural or even urban areas. Hence why I'm joined by Chris Anderson, Sales Director at INVERS, and Stefano Niero, Vehicles Product Manager at Wunder, who will give us more insight into this topic today. And maybe you could quickly both introduce yourselves and your roles at respective company. Chris, you could go first.
Sure, love to. My name's Chris, a bit of a book nerd. I used to be a circus instructor before ending up at INVERS as the sales director. Been here for 4 years out of INVERS's 30, so we were back with sharing right when it started. Really interesting thing about sharing versus fleet. If you have fleet and you've got your telematics in there and it stops working, everything still gets delivered, even though you might not have a GPS ping or know what the oil level is, you still make money because you can still do what you're supposed to do for your job. If sharing doesn't work, you have somebody standing in front of the car and they push the button, it doesn't open the doors, you don't make money. And that's a big problem. So this whole topic of Bluetooth is super important to me because it increases the accuracy, the reliability of being able to make that initial connection to the car and thus making money for the business.
Stefano?
Yeah, hi everyone. I am Stefano Niero. I have an automotive engineering background and I've been working in the smart mobility industry for the last 5 years. I joined Wunder a little over 2 years ago and I work here as the product manager of our hardware and the product owner of our hardware connectivity and software APIs.
Cool. And yes, a quick note before we get started. Everyone that's watching, that you'll be able to write down your questions right down in the chat, and we'll either get back to you during the webinar or as soon as possible afterwards. All right, then let's get started. So let's dive into this topic. Chris, there's been a great rise in usage when it comes to car sharing. Could you give us a little overview of how much this kind of service has evolved over time?
Yeah, sure. I mean, if you go back, the first station-based car sharing attempts were happening in France with Prototype and in Switzerland with mobility car sharing back in the 80s. From there in the 90s, you have Green Wheels in the Netherlands and Car Club Singapore. And what they did is they had in-car tech at that point, which INVERS provided, which was really useful for opening the doors. From there, the internet further facilitated the use of automation. Zipcar was a pioneer in this area in North America. And in the late 2000s and early 2010s, you've got Car2Go and Drive now bringing free-floating car shares to the world. So, quick overview.
Cool. And why do you think users have continued to adopt this kind of mode of transport?
I'll give you 2 really good reasons. It's cheaper, and it can also remove a lot of hassle from your life. If you're spending a portion of your day because you're working from home, maybe 2 or 3 days, it's actually financially attractive to use a car sharing option. It's cheaper than owning your own car, which makes a lot of sense. But the new advances that are coming down, right? Having an app on my phone instead of keys in my pocket, shared vehicle amenities in building, all these things are making it so much easier to use it, right? Bluetooth making a near instant response, no coverage parking is now possible. If you're saving the environment or you just want to live in a world with less traffic, all of these things make car sharing more and more interesting and useful, even if the financial consideration is maybe on the border for you to make that decision. So there's more and more non-financial reasons that make this possible.
And I guess this leads us to Bluetooth. What is Bluetooth and why is it the next step when we talk about connectivity specifically?
Yeah, so Bluetooth, if you go to 96, I looked it up on Wikipedia. Nokia and Intel and NVIDIA, they all got together and they developed something that would unite the ability to communicate amongst stuff. So Let's take sharing, right? It evolved from paper tracking and keys. I've heard about people having keys in a fishbowl on their desk when you go to take something, but then there's no booking platform. So as you start adding booking, you get the ability to use key managers that are going to hold the keys, which take it out, and then you can't have somebody take a rental whenever they want because it's not scheduled. From there, you can start going into RFID cards, and that's going to help you access a vehicle anywhere, anytime. Now we're getting into apps on cell phone networks, and finally Bluetooth being this last step. So this Bluetooth is this next step. It really starts filling gaps in the cell phone networks. And what you're finding is in Europe, there's much better cell reception. The cell network's a lot stronger, a lot more reliable. Whereas in North America, there's a 4 or 5% chance that you're not going to get connection. When this happens, you need some form of Bluetooth solution to still have access to your vehicle. And on top of that, this applies to anything with a no cell coverage area. So if you're in the mountains or you're down in a parking lot, you need to have that Bluetooth to still get the connection working as well. The final thing, and this is maybe the important one to me, is that if you click your phone to unlock the door and you're working on the cell phone, it might take 2 or 3 seconds, but if you're using Bluetooth, it's instantaneous. And then with that instantaneous response, you've got the exact same usage as though you own the car and you're using your own key fob. And that just eliminates one more barrier to having an easy to use solution that, like we said earlier, people are starting to adopt a lot more.
And Stefano, we now talked briefly about the history of Bluetooth as a medium of connectivity. Could you give us some specific customer use case examples where connectivity is lacking and how Bluetooth can help us in these kind of situations?
Yeah, sure. Maybe we can start from the second part. So like, how does it help? The Bluetooth is used in this case to establish a direct connection between your phone and the car without having any server as intermediary. That means that the network is not needed at all times in order to use the software, the service. And that means that like the availability of the car and its service is dramatically expanded. And also, even the service area is dramatically expanded in this service because you can go anywhere that doesn't have a network. So basically, that turns your phone into something that is very, very similar to your car key. So an example of use cases could be, maybe you can go to a ski trip. In some areas, we're still in the season. In some areas, it just ended. This, as Chris pointed out, can be particularly relevant in North America, but a ski trip can be a good example because eventually mountains are mountains. And also in Europe, they can be very difficult to be reached by human infrastructures. So connectivity might not be present either at all times, or maybe the coverage is not great all over the place. So the Bluetooth does help there, independently whether you find yourself in Europe or in North America. We actually, I brought up this example because we had a customer recently that did take the car for a ski trip over the weekend. He's the founder of a company. He might be a tech company. He might be a pioneer today. But thanks to the Bluetooth, this is gonna be like this case is gonna be easier and easier. So we will see that more and more in the near future. I mentioned the mountains, but then this can apply to anywhere in the wilderness, whether these are forests or deserts or even the countryside. Not all the time is very well connected. So this makes the service delivery very smooth. Then I do have another case. So I see that like you can take the car for two main reasons, either to get to somewhere more comfortably or to get there in the only way possible. And let's take, so we saw the wilderness, but we do have cases also in the urban scenario. Let's suppose that you want to go to the city center or to a shopping mall. And especially in the city centers, these are more crowded and there is more space dedicated to pedestrians and less to parking lots, fortunately. That means that you have either, like, if you're bound to park in the surface, you you are very likely to spend a lot of time just running in circle looking for a spot. With the Bluetooth, you can park, you can enjoy the underground parkings, so that you can go to the city center, enter an underground parking garage, park your car, do your things, and then have your car for the journey back.
Cool. And when you say Bluetooth, how do you mean? I think about connecting my phone to a speaker or another device. Does it work like that? Or how does the Bluetooth implementation actually work?
Yeah, so the underlying technology is basically the same. In our case, though, we talk about Bluetooth Low Energy, which is a particular version of this standard that is optimized for energy saving. That is used a lot for short-range communication, for IoT devices, as it's our case, or for wearable technologies. This optimization is performed by minimizing the amount of data that is shared, as you don't need the same quality that you need for the music, for example, in which you need to have to pass a lot of data in some time. With the Bluetooth technology, you can establish a 100% secure and exclusive connection. We do that by means of a token that is basically a temporary password that is used as credential key to establish such a connection between the phone and the car. So how does it work? During the unlock of the car, the token is requested to INVERS servers. So from the phone, it's requested to Wunder server, that in turn is requested to INVERS. INVERS shares this token all the way down to the phone. Once the token is present in the phone, this is used as a credential to open up a channel with the cloud box that is controlling the car, and therefore makes you able to send commands easily and directly to the car from the phone.
Very interesting. But you said that the connection is 100% secure and exclusive. How do we make sure of that? And what are the risks? And how can one prevent them if one is an operator, for example?
Yeah. So having a connection that is not brokered through a server does open up to some risks, although these are theoretical. So let's start checking them out. The case would be to have the token that is spoofed. So basically, it's stolen somehow, breached, and used to access to the car. So this case, anyways, is very, very complex per se, because that means that you need to backwards engineer how the app works, so how this token is used. You need to build something that simulates our own app, and then eventually get access to this token and use it to establish the connection. So it's very, very complicated, because, and also probably not worth the investment to build a whole system in order to steal only one car or even some cars. It's a lot of effort. But nevertheless, we need to take this into account. In order to prevent this, I mentioned that this token has a preset duration. This is in order to maximize the security. Naturally, you can adjust such a duration of the token based on the kind of service that you want to deliver. So if you want to be the shorter the life of the token, and therefore the higher the frequency needed for its renewal, the higher the safety. But at the same time, if you want to enable some user to go for a trip for multiple days, then the token does need to last for a longer time. Aside for the token duration, we also have some checks from the server. As soon as the vehicle goes back online, we do monitor the life of the token. Whether there is an active token out of a reservation, then we invalidate that.
That's a very interesting and extensive answer. And Chris, do you have any advice for adding Bluetooth functionality or deploying car sharing technology into fleets in general?
Yeah, I've got a couple. Let's start with one of the most common things that comes in when people are requesting solutions is they want a specific solution, and they don't start with a challenge. And I would recommend starting with the challenge. This is what we need to solve. How have you done that? because then you're actually using the experience of the software platform and the hardware platform you're engaging with to understand what they've done. Like I said, Wunder and Inverse have been at it for a long, long time. We've come into lots of things that went wrong if implemented that way, and we've come up with solutions for very specific reasons. So ask us about them. Why did you solve it this way? Once you're actually testing, try to do a longer pilot. Try to do a very thorough and comprehensive one, because your project is going to have bugs. It's going to have problems, especially when you start adding users to the mix. You want to find as many of these things before you go live, because you will find them. Try to do it before everything else starts. And then finally, thinking about scaling, right? So the challenges that you have with 100 vehicles are not just smaller versions of the challenges you have with 1,000. Everything changes as you hit different scale points. And because of that, you need to have different solutions. And so when you're looking for, say, a software solution, you want to find a modular way to do it, a modular system, so that you can add new technology and add new features as these new needs come to solve different challenges.
All right, really cool to know what to think about after you do such a pilot. And is there some way that you could show us, Stefano, on how the Bluetooth looks like, but in a demo?
Yeah, absolutely. Let's go through it. All right, so let's see an end-to-end experience with the Wunder app, reserving an Inverse car. So to reserve the car, you select the car, and then you can reserve it. With our app, you are free to select, to allow the possibility to select for how much time you want to reserve it. That depends on the business model that an operator wants, but you can have also a preset time. Then you start the ride. For that, you need an internet connection to perform the checks. You have the possibility in our app to have some pre-ride questions. For example, if you're sober. If you are, then we can start the ride. The car unlocks, you enter the key, and you're good to go. Then during the trip, you might be interested in pausing the trip. In pausing the trip, let's see, in this case, we have the internet connection. We don't have the Bluetooth. We are in an office, so the signal is screened just as much as it can be in an underground garage or for street canyoning. Therefore, it's taking quite some time. But then this is when Bluetooth becomes interesting, because with the Bluetooth instead, we send the command, and within near instant, we can see the car that is locking. Same goes for the unlocking. Then eventually you want to end the ride. For that, you need to have the internet connection again to perform the checks. You need to switch off the ignition. You end the ride through the ride through the app. You rate it 5 stars, and then you're good to go.
And let's make some room for some audience questions. We actually have a question from one of our attendees wondering about end rental conditions, asking, does it mean that the business area of the sharing service can be simply expanded to areas with poor connectivity or no connection, such as underground garages, when such feature is enabled?
Yeah, I would gladly take this one. So yes, and also no. So that really depends on the kind of service that you want to deliver. What I mean is that for free floating, it's absolutely possible, although it's not very much suggestible. You need to take care of the token sharing at the start of the rental. The way it's implemented right now, the token is shared to the phone at the moment of the start of the rental. So that means that you need the network. We can also provide it completely offline. The thing is that then you need to consider that you need to pass the information of where the vehicle is, where was it left, and where is it to be taken. So let's take the multi-story parking garage. You need to find a way to make sure that the exact position of the car is shared, and also even the floor, the floor where the car was parked. These things change a lot when you are in the case of the pre-booking, or anyways like an actual like longer term rental, because in those cases you simply have either dedicated spots at parking garages, or otherwise you have maybe anyways a different process, a little bit longer, not as real time, so that you can put in the process the sharing of the position of the car manually written. That's the main thing.
And we also have another question from another attendee asking, can you apply such Bluetooth integration to all the cars, or do you have only specific models integrated? Chris?
Yeah, great question. All of the cars, easy. So if you're looking at Bluetooth, that's a way of communicating to the device itself, right? So you can use Bluetooth, you can use the RFID cards, you can use the cell phone network. All these things to communicate to the device, and the device itself can be put into any car. So yeah, sky's the limit.
All right. And then let's summarize everything that we've spoken about today. Chris, you've explained the history and evolution of car sharing technology, as well as given us a brief history of Bluetooth. Stefano, you've dived into customer pains and use case scenarios. We also talked about Bluetooth implementation, security aspects, and the value of pilot programs. We also got to answer some questions. Unfortunately, time is running out, but thank you, Chris and Stefano, for talking about this exciting topic today. And thank you in the audience for participating and for asking your questions. For all of those we weren't able to get to, we'll get to them as soon as possible from respective product teams afterwards. All right. Bye, Chris.
See ya. Thanks for being on. It's great to see everybody.
Bye-bye, everyone. Thank you.